Hi, I'm Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 165 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. Now you'll notice I'm broadcasting from a super secret, totally different location today, which happens to be my son Daniel's old bedroom. The kid moved out of the house, turned 19 years old, and ended up getting an apartment with two of his friends. So what am I going to do with his empty room? You better bet I'm going to put Amigas in it, because that's how I roll. Now, today's episode's kind of special because I'm going to be introducing you to a new friend of mine, which you can probably already guess is the Amiga CD32. Now, I've been looking for an Amiga CD32 for a couple of years now, really probably since 2018 or 2019. Now, over across the pond, over in Europe, you can pick up a CD32 for $250, $350, $400, well, pounds or biscuits or spotted dick or whatever they use for currency over there. Pretty reasonably priced for a PAL machine. Over here in the United States, things are a little different. Pop onto eBay sometime, the US eBay site, and do a search for CD32, and you're going to see prices like $850, $950, $1,000, $1,200, and they sell for that. It's insane. It's insane. I love the CD32. It is not a $1,200 product. So, I've been keeping my eye out for it. I put a few bids in here and there, but I have an upper limit of what I'm going to spend because I don't need it that bad. And I was thinking on maybe just importing one from Europe, but I never quite finalized anything with that. So the other day, I'm browsing eBay, as one is wont to do, and I see one for 600 American dollars. Buy it now, 600 American. He says it works. He says it boots up to the Amiga CD32 screen. He put in an audio CD, which is the only thing he had. Nothing happened. He says, I don't know if it works or not. Maybe the CD-ROM is toast. He says, 600 bucks. Or best offer. So me being who I am, I'm like, you know, it could be an absolute ton of work to get this thing fixed. I'm going to offer him 500 bucks and see what happens. The worst that can happen is it says no, or he counters. No big deal. So I send in this offer on eBay. And I don't hear anything for a day or two. I'm like, okay, he's selling it to someone else. I log back into eBay. It says sold. So, okay, someone did buy it now for 600 bucks. Fantastic. I'm glad they got such a sweet deal on it. And I go about my business. A day later, I'm doing my banking on my phone. I'm like, why was there $500 withdrawn out of my account? I have no idea. eBay? What the? I go back on there. Okay, he accepted my offer. And eBay just took the money just like that. Send it to him. Not a, hey, congratulations, you won, pay now type of thing. Nope, I'm taking it right this very second. I, to this day, have never received a notification that I won the bid for the Amiga CD32. It just took the money and he sent it to me. So, I got the thing. And it said, like I mentioned, that it was a PAL unit. Okay, fine. PAL CD32, that's the way to go. Because, a little bit of history here, Commodore came out with the Amiga CD32 about 12 minutes before they spent every last penny that they had and declared bankruptcy. It was kind of their last hurrah, but it was a really cool last hurrah. The little beauty right here, basically the same kind of chips as an AGA Amiga 1200. It's not an Amiga 1200 that's been modified, but it has similar chips, similar specs. 68020, 2 megs of chip RAM, AGA graphics, and a couple of other things that we're going to be talking about. See, these were going to be released first in European countries, and then in the United States a month or two later, a couple of months later. It was late 1993. Commodore released them. They ended up selling really quite well over in Europe, like to the point where it was actually the best-selling CD device for a while, for the holiday season in '93, I think, which is kind of cool. Then Commodore started having supply problems. They weren't able to get enough of them in. And then, to add insult to injury, they had 500 billion of these CD32s. I made up that number, and that's a lie, but they had a lot of CD32s set aside for the NTSC market, the United States market, and Canada and such. These were sitting there over in the Philippines, waiting to be shipped to our hot little hands over here in America. Now, there's a lot of us who were running Amiga 3000s, Amiga 2000s, Amiga 500s, who had not jumped on the AGA bandwagon yet. And we're looking at this CD32 going, that's kind of a cool way to get an Amiga with an AGA chipset. So there were a lot of us who were anticipating buying an Amiga CD32 when it released in the United States, including myself. I was looking at, what was the name of the game that was released for it and announced? Liberation 2, that's the one. I was looking at some of these graphics for Liberation 2 and some of the gameplay that they were showing in the magazines. Like, okay, I'm buying a CD32 as soon as it hits. Then there's this company, and I believe they were associated with Microsoft, although it was not specifically Microsoft, who filed an injunction against Commodore to disallow them from importing anything into the United States until Commodore made a $10 million patent payment, royalty payment. Now, they should pay royalty payments where royalty payments are due. But Commodore's like, okay, hey, that sounds great. Here, let me just get my wallet open. And the moths fly out. And they're like, yeah, we don't have any money. We're broke. We put all of our money into making these CD32s and paying for them, and now we can't sell them. So we give up. We're going bankrupt. Now that's a short and sweet version, but it's fairly close to what happened. The fact that they could not get enough Amiga CD32s into customers' hands in a reasonable amount of time was part of why they went under. Were they going to go under anyways? Very possibly, but they could have stuck it out a while longer with the revenue that they brought in for the Amiga CD32, and maybe they would have used that revenue to put back into the company and bring out new products. We'll never know, because, we can't go back in time. So I got this new CD32 in. Beautiful. Came with a box and everything. Let's take a look at that box right now, and there's something interesting about it I want to show you. The box is in reasonable shape, not too bad. We've got a little damage down here, nothing serious. It just looks like it's been sitting around for a long time. That still has the original packing materials inside, the original styrofoam, and a couple of the manuals, which I'll show you in a minute. The world's first 32-bit games console from Commodore, fantastic. Dual speed, state-of-the-art CD-ROM, stores the equivalent of 660 floppies. 32-bit processor and new Buster graphics accelerator. 256,000 Wait a minute. What's this? 32-bit processor. Check. New Buster graphics accelerator. Okay, guys. What is a Buster graphics accelerator? I think they're talking about the Akiko chip in there, which absolutely does some chunky to planar conversions and also controls the CD-ROM drive. But I've never heard of the Buster graphics accelerator. I've never heard that in any literature. Is that on all the boxes? Now, Buster, that's a chip that handles bus arbitration in the Amiga 2000 and 3000 and 4000. The Buster chip, it's well known, nothing to do with graphics. Is it just me? Is this a strange box or is this normal? Now, of course, the rest of this is totally accurate here. CD32 software, standard audio CDs, CD plus G, and CD TV titles. And I can confirm that's true. All right. So, got the new box. Let's take a look at what else we got in it. We got our Commodore 1-year limited warranty card here. Let's try and do this while holding a camera. Hey, limited 1-year repair warranty. I bet people were surprised when they bought their CD32 with their 1-year repair warranty, and 4 months later, Commodore went out of business. Bummer. And cool Amiga CD32 consumer information. And this is just a basic little guide about, boring old information that's about the CD32, nothing exciting. It also came with a full manual for the CD32, but I've apparently left that in the other room and I'm now too lazy to go and get it. So let's take a look at the CD32 itself. It is in my humble opinion, a very handsome unit. I think it's very, very attractive. We've got a reset button here. We have a volume slider that controls the volume only for the headset port here. And I think that's very cool that they included a headset port in addition to the standard RCA jacks. We have a power light and we have a CD activity light in the front. Now this is one of the top loading CD-ROMs. This is a double speed unit. It's a proprietary interface, double speed CD-ROM unit in here. And you just put the CD in there and close it down and she spins up. Boot times are not particularly impressive because it's a double speed CD-ROM. Put a CD in there and your game will probably start 30, 40 seconds late or something like that. No big deal. Let's look around on the side. Over on the side here, we have 3 ports. We have a standard set of joystick ports, 9-pin. These work with any Atari type controller. The CD32 shipped with its own controller, which has a directional pad. It has left and right shoulder buttons there, and it has 4 buttons on the top, each of them a different action, which is kind of cool for a 9-pin jack, and then a start and stop button right here. Now, some people complain about the CD32 controller and think that it's weird. I'll tell you what, I think it's perfectly comfortable. I've been really content using this thing. It feels pretty good in the hand. Then we also have, it's called an aux port here, and this was designed for a CD32 keyboard, so you could, you know, make the whole thing into an actual full-blown Amiga. Now, the actual CD32 keyboards, they're even less common than CD-TV keyboards. But I understand, and I'll put a link in the description as long as I can find it, I understand there's an adapter to adapt this to standard PS2, and I am definitely going to be getting one of those. Here around the back, this is wide open. Normally, I would have this little accessory right on here covering it up, but considering I've been taking the thing apart 100,000 times, I left it off. Starting from the right, we have our standard RCA audio jacks for full stereo audio. This just has the standard Paula chip in it. We have composite video out, which is actually really, really good quality. I'm impressed with it. It's almost as good as the Amiga 1000's composite. It's got S-video out on the NTSC versions. As a matter of fact, I think most versions, except the French ones, have the S-video out. That is excellent, excellent picture quality. Has a standard RF adapter for hooking up to just RF on the TV. It has a power adapter. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, this is pretty much the same power brick that was used in the 1541-2 Commodore 64 disk drives, and also maybe the 1581 3.5-inch drive. I think they are fully compatible, but don't quote me on that, and certainly don't plug one in until you verify. And then we have a standard power rocker switch here. Now this is an expansion port right here, and I am so thankful Commodore had the foresight to put an expansion port on here. What it was really designed for, you can see the little flat header here, was their full motion video card that would then let this play back full motion CD video, MPEG video, and it was okay quality. Now remember, this was in the days before DVD, and it was a little better maybe than VHS quality, and in theory you could have gotten maybe an hour or so of the video on a CD, maybe, possibly, but it never really took off. The full motion video card never really took off, although it was pretty cool. But the cool thing about it is this header right here passes through almost every signal that the CD32 can generate. So that means video, theoretically floppy connections you could theoretically put on here, accelerators, PS2 mouse ports, all kinds of cool little things. There were a couple of expansion boxes, I think it was the SX1 and the SX2, that added all kinds of expansion capabilities, including on one a 68030 and a hard drive interface, which is really cool. Now, in these modern times, what we use these for, in general, are the TerribleFire accelerators. There's two different ones. There's one that has 8 megs of RAM and an IDE header on it. And there's a second one that has a full-blown 68030 running at 50 megahertz that also has either 64 or 128 megabytes of RAM on it, and it has a nice hard drive interface. Now, guess which one old Dougie is going to buy? Yeah, he's going to buy the 68030 one with 128 megs of RAM because reasons. How these work is there's this expansion riser that slots into here and then slots back, and you can actually put the accelerator back in here. And the expansion risers are cool too. The one I'm going to get has a standard VGA port on it, and it'll put out 15 kilohertz VGA video. But others also have like a mouse adapter on it. Some have like a real-time clock on the little riser. So you can get different things on the risers for the TerribleFires. It's actually really cool. Now the purpose of these accelerators, like the TerribleFire that I'm going to be getting, the purpose of them is to turn the thing basically into a full-blown AGA Amiga. Now a lot of people say it turns it into Amiga 1200. Well, I don't like that terminology. That's like saying you can turn your Amiga 1200 into an Amiga 4000 by putting it in a tower case. No, it's still just an Amiga 1200. It's just in a different case. Just like this, it's a CD32, but you add a keyboard, you add a mouse, you add a hard drive, and some RAM, and suddenly you have something that can run any version of Amiga software that's out there. Some of the expansions even had a floppy connector on it. I wish they had some of those because that'd be useful, putting a GoTech on this thing. But it turns it into a full-blown AGA Amiga with a working CD-ROM drive, and that's kind of cool. Now, I mentioned the seller said that this was a PAL Amiga CD32. It is not a PAL CD32. This is a full-blown NTSC CD32. Made in the Philippines. It says A100. I don't know why it says A100. It says US on it. It doesn't say Canadian. It says US. So very possibly, this is one of the CD32s that came out of the stock in the Philippines that Commodore had and was trying to import in the United States back in '94, but did not get released and sold off until like 15 years ago or something like that, when for a little period of time, the market was flooded with CD32s, NTSC variety, that came out of the Philippines. I think that's where this came from, and that's also why I suspect it's in such good shape and has very possibly never really been used very much for anything. It wasn't new in box because the things weren't sealed up in the plastic and everything like that, but I don't think it's ever had much use at all. Now, I was talking to Matthew Lehman from Amiga Kit earlier today, and he said back like 12 or 15 years ago, he bought an absolute ton of those CD32s from the Philippines warehouse. He was selling them at $30 a piece. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine saying, yeah, I'll take an Amiga CD32 for 32 bucks? Those days are gone, my friends. Now, I did mention also that this was listed as not really working because even the audio CDs would not work. So I thought, okay, I've heard that there's new lasers that are available for them. Maybe get a new laser, whatnot. I got the thing in, and of course, this is me. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, let's probe the electrical, this electrical brick and make sure our voltages are correct. Let's double check these capacitors and make sure we have the right capacitance and make sure they're not leaking. Heck no. I'm going to take the thing out of the box. I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to hit the power switch, and I'm going to see if it explodes, okay? That's how I roll. Usually I'm pretty lucky, too. In this case, I turned it on. I put a regular audio CD in there, and sure enough, nothing. I got nothing. It goes to the Amiga CD32 screen, nothing else. Then I thought, well, let's just try a few other things. So I got out my karaoke CD with CD plus graphics. Now, this one Party Time Karaoke. This has I Just Want to Fly by Sugar Ray, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith, Getting Jiggy With It by Will Smith on here. So you can imagine I use this all the time for my own personal karaoke uses. I put this in the CD32 drive. Screen went black. CD plus G screen came up with the lyrics on it, playing audio. I'm like, okay, this CD drive does function. It functions a little bit. It read a CD plus G disc. So I tried a couple other audio CDs, and maybe half of them would work. I'd put in my Lonely Island CD. You look that one up. That's a great one. I put up my Lonely Island CD, played absolutely beautifully. I'd put in my Florence and the Machine CD, nothing. Wouldn't even spin. It'd spin, but it wouldn't recognize anything. So I thought, okay, let's do a little research. Apparently the lasers can kind of lose their electrical alignment a little bit over the years. They can get weaker and just a little bit out of spec. We're going to pop this thing open. I'm going to show you. But this thing has 5 different potentiometers in it to adjust some very, very fine settings about how the laser works. Now, one of them is the power setting for the laser. The Amiga CD32 laser is designed to read audio CDs and Amiga CD32 CDs. These are all professionally implemented CDs, professionally pressed, really, really good quality. Not the crappy CDR discs that we all used back in the 90s, like these, where you burn your own CDs. The laser, when the laser pits this and writes data to it, it's a little different than how it does it and how it appears with a regular audio CD or a software CD. And the CD32 just can't read that very well. Never has been able to. But if you go in and adjust a little potentiometer, boost the electrical signal a little bit, suddenly it'll read the CDs. Let's open it up and take a look at what I did to get it working with all the CDs I throw at it now. So it's pretty easy to open up one of these CD32s. If you flip the little guy over, there's just a couple of screws here, here, and then along the sides. Take those screws out, and the case will just lift right off. Okay, now be exceptionally careful. See this ribbon cable here? This is the ribbon cable that leads from the CD here onto the motherboard, which we're going to open up in a second. But it does not have a whole lot of play in it. You don't want to keep taking this out, in and out when you're working on it if you can help it, because each time you do that, it's going to increase the risk that you're going to screw something up. So what I did, I just took something soft like a little towel so I wouldn't scratch the surface, and I kind of just lay it like that. Then it's not putting any pressure on the little cable here, and I can still get to the laser unit if I need to. Now let's take a look at what you have to do to adjust just the power on the laser unit. This is the laser right here. Okay, you see a couple little cables going to it. And this unit is actually replaceable. There's still new versions of this made, which is kind of nice. If we turn this around a little bit, here we go. And you look right there. See that little orange potentiometer? Yay, a potentiometer! Yay, blurry video! That is the power control for the laser. Normally it's set to about 900 millivolts it uses to read our standard Amiga CD32. That's not quite enough for it to read CDR discs. What you need to do is you need to get a little tiny screwdriver and turn this clockwise. Ba-doom, 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 clockwise, okay? And I'm talking teeny tiny turns. You don't do a full turn, you don't do a quarter turn. I'm talking 1 millimeter 2 millimeters, just boop, boop, just little tiny turns on that make a dramatic difference in the power going to the laser. If you overpower the laser, you're going to burn it out and you're going to have to order a new one. So you just want to do a little tiny, 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 tiny little turn to increase the power of the laser, then put her back together and see if it can then read the audio discs and the CDR discs. With me, I had to make 2 adjustments. The first adjustment I made, I was able to read almost all audio discs. After I did my first adjustment, suddenly it went from reading half audio discs to reading every audio disc I put in. It still would not reliably read CD32 discs or my CD-TV discs. It just wouldn't read them. Came back in, another little tiny adjustment, poof, it'll read anything I throw at it. There's virtually no disc that I can put in here that it won't now read. Now, you go and read some of the instructions on how to do this, and they're going to say, okay, you put it on an oscilloscope, and you run this test, and you check these sine waves, and you do this, and that ain't me. Me, I get in there with a screwdriver and say, oh, it needs to be adjusted. Boop, okay, I adjusted it. Let's see if it works. Oh, it works. I'm happy. Is that the right way to do it? Nope. Is that the Doug way to do it? Yep. Let's just briefly talk about some of the other adjustments you can make to this. I'm going to refer you to a really nice website and a really nice video that goes over step by step how to adjust the other 4 potentiometers I'm about to show you. I'm not going to adjust them myself because mine is working perfect, and also I don't quite have the tools to do it correctly. First, you're going to take off the 4 screws. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 4 under there. And then the whole laser assembly just comes right out. Now in my case, I still have it connected to the ribbon cable. You may want to take yours off, you may not want to. Right here, there's going to be a gold screw that you're going to want to unscrew and remove. That is going to then let us take a tool like this little spade here, and you just gently release these little tabs. There's one. Nope. There's one. And that releases those little tabs right there. And now look what we have under here. We have 4 new magic potentiometers. Each one of these makes a different kind of adjustment to the laser's focus, the laser's error correction. There are instructions on the website that I linked to and the video I linked to on how to read the potentiometers using these little connections on the bottom right here and adjust them to put your CD32 into perfect spec. Now, mine works now and I'm not having any issues, so I'm not going to touch them. But when I send this away to Frank at Retro Rewind to have this thing recapped in a couple of weeks, I'm asking him if he has the tools to make all the fine-tuning adjustments and make sure my laser's in perfect alignment. Don't mess with these if you don't know what you're doing. You turn one of these the wrong way and your laser's just not going to work until you get it put back into calibration. Let's put this back together and let's dig into the motherboard and see what that looks like. The motherboard's under here. Now, this girl is a virgin. She's never been touched, never been opened up before. Insert Chris Edwards Mona sound effect right here. A couple of these little tabs, you just want to bend them up gently. Don't be too forceful because we want to bend these back down. And let's see if that's enough. Yep, I think I got all the tabs. Then we've got a couple of little screws here that we need to unscrew. There's one more screw right back here. So we have a total of 5 tabs and 2 screws in order to get this part of the tray up. And I lied. One more screw over here. Once you get her apart, here's the lovely little motherboard. Here we've got our ROMs. Here we have our 2 megabytes of RAM. She's got a 68020 running at 14 megahertz. She has the standard Paula chip in here. She's going to have a new chip called Akiko. And what Akiko does is Akiko controls the CD-ROM, and Akiko also handles the chunky to planar conversions that are required and used on a couple of CD32 games. It was progress. Here's the header for the CD-ROM. You see I did take it off. Be gentle if you do that. Those ribbon cables would have to be replaced if you mess it up. Here are 11,000 SMD capacitors. Let's see if we can get in close and see if they look like they're icky. I'm taking a look at them. They don't look horrible. I'm not noticing any spillage or leakage. Let's see these. Jeez, these actually look like they're in fairly good shape. I think this thing was well stored over the years. Now I'm going to go ahead and have them replaced anyways because they probably will leak. But yeah, they don't look like they're in horrible shape. And of course, Amiga always had fun with their names. This one is the Spellbound Rev 3. Hey, there's our little 68020 chip. It's a rectangle. Let's get her put back together and boot it up. So let's get this little beauty powered up now. I have it connected via S-Video to my little LG television. I have no CD in the drive right now. See, it tries to access the CD. The little CD access light comes on, and after a few seconds, we hear some lovely CD32 music. Now, the main screen here is actually quite pretty and quite colorful. I don't know if Jim Sachs did this one like he did the one on the CD-TV, but it is nice. Now, there's a couple of things you can do from this main screen. If you hit the red button after it boots, what it comes to is this little screen right here. The CD32 has 1 kilobyte of non-volatile memory where things like high scores or game saves and other things can be saved. You cannot go in there and delete them, but you can lock them because things that are saved in here are automatically overwritten as that 1 kilobyte of memory gets full. To me, completely and totally useless. What can you put in 1 kilobyte of RAM? I don't know. The second thing is this blue button right here. Hold that down and it comes up with choose what language you're in. And of course, we're in English because what other language possibly is there in this world? Now, to test the CD audio features, I'm going to use one of my good friends, Joe Jenks. There's a picture of him right there, one of his CDs, because if I get hit with a copyright hit, I can just pick up the phone and call Joe and say, yo, buddy, can you release the copyright hit? He wouldn't do that to me. We've known each other since I was like 5. Pop it in the tray. As soon as you close it, it reads the CD, and a screen very familiar to us CD-TV users will then pop up. Here, it looks very similar to the CD-TV version, and you can go ahead and start playing the music by hitting the play button right here. And just like the CD-TV, we can randomize things. We can tell it to play just the first 10 seconds of every song. Normal kind of stuff here for audio CD playback. Audio quality, perfectly fantastic. Now let's say we want to do some karaoke. We're going to pop out Joe's CD, and I'm going to throw it across the room, and we're going to put our Party Time Karaoke. This is a CD plus G disc. These are still made today and still incredibly popular for karaoke machines. So you can literally buy new CD plus G discs today that do karaoke. Now this should come up and it should say CD plus G here in a second. Huh. We'll play. Where's my video? There it is. Now here's I Just Want to Fly. I really hope I don't get a copyright hit here. We can go to the next song. I really don't want to get a copyright hit, but you can see it comes up with a normal karaoke type screen here, telling you where you're supposed to sing, plays the music in the background. It's actually kind of cool. Now it will also play a lot of CD TV titles. Not all of them, but it will play a lot of them. Probably I would say most. So here's the good old Defender of the Crown, which is a fun game, made even more funner on a CD TV or a CD32. Let's launch it, see what happens. Yay! Defender of the Crown, CD TV. We'll choose our character. For some reason I always pick Cedric of Rotherwood.
You have chosen wisely, my lord. The brave Saxons will rally to my standard.
Here's something the floppy version didn't have.
Sherwood Forest, you are greeted by your old friend Robin of Locksley. Many years have passed since you served with Robin and his men, but disastrous news curtails the reunion. During your journey,
we're going to skip that, and you can go in and just play the game. Now, I have had a few little issues with this where I'll be playing along, everything will be going good, and it just stops working. It just freezes up, the screen freezes up. I don't know if it's the fact that the CD32 doesn't like this particular CD TV game, but it mostly plays. Now, how about CD32 titles themselves? Well, they're hard to get, and to be perfectly honest, I don't yet own any, but as soon as I get back on eBay and find a couple of good deals, I'll be buying them. I absolutely prefer to purchase my games, even the older versions, rather than copy them. But, you know, I need to test this out for science. Now, here's Gloom 32, CD32. If you burn your own CDs, burn them as slowly as your device will support. If it supports burning at 1x or 2x, burn them at 1x or 2x. The slower it burns, the deeper the pits it burns, the easier it is for the CD32 to read them. My CD burner that I burned all these, the slowest speed it'll burn is about 8x. They actually read fine, but I'd prefer it if I even did it slower. Image Burn for Windows is a good program to use. I'll put a link in the description for that. Pop in my CD32 game. Now the first thing you'll notice is that this is an NTSC machine, so it's cutting off the very bottom of Gloom. A lot of PAL games will play fine on NTSC machines, just with some pixels cut off at the bottom, but usually, you know, it's something you can live with. We're going to choose one player. It's cutting off the text at the very bottom of the screen there, but there's always little hints and messages that the soldiers tell you. Now, this is a Doom, not a clone, but you know, copied version that's similar to it. Look how meaty those little guys explode. That's really disgusting. Use the control pad forward, backward, left, right, and then the shoulder buttons are strafing, which is actually really cool. You know what? This is not a horrible game. This is not bad, considering the limitations of the Amiga and that this is running on a 68020. It's actually rather smooth. You can control the resolution, like we'll go full size and continue. Now we've got a full screen mode. It's 2 megs of chip RAM and a 68020. It's not horrible. It's absolutely playable. And you can also do things on slower Amigas like turn off the ceiling tiles and the floor tiles. But man, on this, not too shabby. Luckily not violent at all either. This is Saint Dragon for the CD32, and I don't think this was an official release at all. This is somebody who created this just for the CD32. It's using WHD load right off the CD, which is kind of cool, but it runs on any unexpanded CD32 console. Now, this is running, this is a PAL game running on NTSC machine. So, if you listen to the music and you notice it actually sounds good, and it sounds like the actual arcade version, that's because it's running at NTSC speeds, which are the right speeds. Gameplay is also fast and fluid. If you run this on a PAL machine, everything feels just a little bit slower than the arcade version. But man, one of my favorite games. Now here's a game that is an absolute classic on the Amiga. This is the Lotus Trilogy from Gremlin. So we can play Lotus 1, Lotus 2, or Lotus 3 right off the same CD, which is actually really cool. So we're going to launch some Lotus 3 here. Lotus 3, the ultimate challenge. Now, this brings up a good point. This was probably originally a PAL game. This was probably originally a PAL game, but it's designed to work fine in NTSC also. And it's not impossible to make your games both PAL and NTSC compatible. We're just going to go ahead and start the game. And we want to go with a Itsy Bitsy Elan. Let's go track 5. And start the race. Great music in this Lotus game. Hey, why is my car white? I chose the yellow one. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. Bye, suckers. Hey. All right. Where's all the bonuses? Where I want banana peels, I want mushrooms, I want a blue shell. Come on, guys. But absolutely perfectly fluid and gorgeous. This is cute, actually. I just took out Lotus and put in Banshee. And it ran out of memory because I didn't shut the machine down first. And it comes up with a standard Amiga OS error. That's really cool. If I had a keyboard hooked up to it, I could probably type right here too. So this brings us to our issues between PAL and NTSC. Right now, we're running Banshee in NTSC mode. And those of you that are familiar with Banshee, it's one of the best games for AGA Amigas. But you see, it's cutting everything off on the bottom right there. Let's go ahead and just start the game. And you'll note that under Options, there are no options to change between PAL and NTSC mode. We're going to go ahead and start it in NTSC mode. Now look on the lower left, you'll see the player 2 screen is absolutely chopped off. Now also notice all the screen glitching and graphics glitching. See all that happening right there? That is not normal. We do not like that at all. But the game plays fine. I mean, it plays perfectly fine. Just graphical glitches on here. So what do we do with it? Let me show you. You can hook up a bog standard mouse to port 2, the second joystick port, on your CD32. You can do the 2-button salute I just did right there. And see, I've got full mouse control, boot options, nothing there. Display options, NTSC or PAL, and then expansion board diagnostics, nothing there. What we want to do is switch to PAL mode. That's fantastic. Now, just like any Amiga that has 2.0 or more on it, you can switch between NTSC and PAL very easily. The caveat is unless your screen supports PAL, or in the opposite case, unless your screen supports NTSC, it's going to come in black and white. See how I've got absolutely Zippo Zero color here? Now, admittedly, it actually looks pretty good in grayscale. But now you'll see, even though I'm in PAL and it is currently in grayscale, all of the menus appear properly and all of the graphical glitches are totally gone. So you can now play the game in PAL mode just beautifully. Now, this would appear in color if I had this connected to a PAL compatible display. And I do. Take a look just to my left here, and I have a nice 1084 monitor that works absolutely delightfully in PAL. I have my LCD connected via S-Video. I have my 1084 connected via Composite. And look what happens. Yay! And of course it's a little bit flickery because it's a CRT going through the camera, but it looks good to my eyeball. But now I am full color PAL right on my 1084. And you know what? There's a lot of modern LCD TVs that actually display PAL just fine. Most of mine that I use in my actual studio, I don't have any issues switching over to PAL mode and they display just fine. So it's just this particular LG TV that I'm using in here doesn't support PAL. So I'll just use a different one. But looks absolutely gorgeous in PAL. This is a fantastic game. I need to get together with my son and we need to play 2-player on this. We'd have an absolute blast. Do a barrel roll! And I was thrilled that my 1084 will display in PAL because I absolutely love Amiga pinball games. I think they're just the coolest thing. And this is really, really nice pinball game. I do wish that Pinball Fantasies would have more tables on it. We've only got 4 different tables, and on CD I wish they just had a bunch. But Pinball Fantasies would not display anything when I booted into NTSC mode. It would show me the first 2 splash screens and it would play the audio, but I could not see any of the tables or anything. They just would not appear. So I'm so glad that this works in PAL mode. Stones and Bones. Something about Amiga pinball just really, really goes nicely together. I think it's how fluid the ball is. So what's my opinion of my new CD32? Absolutely love it. Love the fact that I don't think it's ever really been used because the thing's in mint condition, never been opened, nothing saved in the non-volatile memory. Love the fact that I was just able to crank up the laser power a little bit and actually get things to work, like Xenon 2 for the CD-TV, absolutely thrilled. Absolutely thrilled that the motherboard is not a leaking mess of capacitors, which means I don't have to rush to get the capacitors changed. I can set it in a week or two and still have some time to play around. What am I going to do with this little guy? Well, this is me. I'm going to be getting the TF330. I've already got one in my shopping cart from amigastore.eu, and I'm going to be getting the 68030 50 megahertz version that has the riser card on it. I'm just going to get the riser card with the video output, I think. They have some other ones that are available elsewhere, but I'm going to get everything from one place. I'm going to get this thing probably with Workbench 3.1 and then just have like a 16 gig compact flash card in there. Maybe partition into a couple of 4 gig partitions with a bunch of games on it. And I'm going to use the thing mainly as a games machine. You know, I don't play a ton of Amiga games. I love them, but I don't play a ton of them. But I'm going to reserve this little guy for all of my Amiga games, because with WHD load and an 030 running at 50 megahertz, what can't this thing run? I'll get the keyboard adapter, so if I want to do some keyboard games too, no problem at all. Probably won't do too much actual work on it, but I don't really need to, because I have a couple of other Amigas I can do all that on. Was it worth the 500 bucks I paid? Well, I'm not going to find one for much less. I could have gotten one overseas, probably for $100 or $200 less, but then you've got extra shipping. And I kind of like the fact that it's a kind of uncommon United States NTSC version. Those are not very common at all. And if I want to do PAL stuff on it, fine, I'll do the two-finger salute. I'll boot up, I'll boot into PAL mode. 90% of PAL games are going to work fine that way with a little of extra effort. Interestingly enough, this really completes my Amiga collection. Now, I don't have a 3000T tower and I don't have a 4000 tower. It'd be great to get one, and maybe someday I'll think about it, but I don't really need one. And I'll be perfectly honest, I've been selling computers for 30 years. I hate big, bulky towers. They're just in the way. Everything that I use is nice and small and compact, and that's the way I like things. So I'll probably pass on those. But I've got everything from the Amiga 1000, the 500, the 600, the 1200, the 2000, the 3000, the 4000, a CD-TV, and now a CD32. You know, got to catch them all, and I think I caught the last one that I really want. Now, does that mean I won't buy any more Amigas? No, I'll buy more Amigas. But I've got everything that I need, and I'm content where I'm at right now, which is kind of a cool feeling. Thank you to my wonderful patrons who've helped support this program. You can see their names scrolling over. A game of Xenon 2. This one was for the CD-TV, but it plays great on the CD32 for the most part. If you'd like to join in and help the show, pop on over to patreon.com/10mark for more information. Thank you guys. You guys are the best. So please, like and subscribe. Tell me below about your CD-TV and how you've expanded it and what you use it for. Are you one of those guys that's just a purist and you only play CDs on it? Do you have the thing maxed out with a 68030 and you're doing that WHD load? Tell me how you display your graphics on it. I'd love to hear that. Tell me how you use it for your running your multinational companies, multi-billion multinational companies. I'd love to hear that too. Follow me on all the socials. All the links are down in the description. But until next time, this is Doug from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out.